Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera. My name is Muhammad Afiq Fikri bin Muhammad Jafri. I'm from Polytechnic Metro BETONG Sarawak. Today for Techon 2023, I will present about factors that influence motivation towards satisfaction among volunteers. A case of YAYASAN SUKARELAWAN SISWA, Yes Polytechnic Metro BETONG Sarawak. So about the introduction of the topic, okay, this research is comprised the study of factors that influence motivation towards satisfaction among Yayasan Sukarelawan Siswa Yes volunteers at Polytechnic Metro Betong Sarawak. So the study's goal is to determine what are the motivation factors that are related to the volunteers, which is extrinsic and intrinsic factors that provide satisfaction to the volunteers. So, from this study, we will seek to identify the factors that contribute the satisfaction of volunteers who have participated in any volunteering activities. For the next agenda is about problem statements. So, for the first problem statement, according to Jung 2004, a problem discovered to be a volunteer attitude during the event. And then, in order to do so, one must first understand the sources of satisfaction for volunteer as well as the factors that influencing their future volunteer intention. Pauline 2011. According to Ryan and Dacey 2009, a volunteer participation is based on two factors, which is extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. In recent years, a discussion about volunteer motivation have drawn research such as Warner et al. 2011 and Pierce 1983 who argue the motivation that alone are poor predictors of the volunteer support. We go to the next agenda, which is a research objective. So for this study, they have two research objectives. For the first research objective, to identify the motivation factors of volunteers. Therefore, this study is aiming to find the motivation factors of volunteers. For another research objective is to identify the relationship between motivation factors and volunteer satisfaction. Therefore, this study is aiming to find the relationship between motivation factors and volunteer satisfaction. For the next agenda is about literature review. Okay, let's go. Okay, for the first, volunteer. According to Konieczka and Swinski 2020, a volunteer can be performed individually or by supporting the action of employers, either directly or online e-volunteering as a one-time activity or independently through a recipient, usually a foundation or charity. Secondly, Pa et al. 2017 stated that volunteerism has been established by the state in Malaysia for students of all races because it symbolized the identity and spirit of a responsible citizen. Thirdly, Bengal et al. 2009, an intention to volunteer for an event is a function of the perceived contribution of volunteering and the rewards an individual expects to receive as a result of volunteer experience. Bengal et al. 2009. Literature review is about volunteer motivation. First, Clary et al. 1998, Lai et al. 2013 stated that 6 reasons why people volunteer. Firstly, it's about values, to express altruistic and humanitarian concern for others. Second is about understanding, to acquire new learning experience and or exercise skills that will otherwise go unused. Third, social, to strengthen social relationship. Fourth is about career, to gain career-related experience. Fifth is about protection, to reduce negative feeling about oneself or address personal problems. And lastly, self-enhancement, to grow and develop psychologically. Second, Wilson and Pym 2006 stated that volunteers, according to Kotler as cited in Wilson and Pym 2006, require no reward other than appreciation. Third, Nahla Osama Nasa and Nashruh Muhammad Ta'alat 2009 stated that people volunteer for an event for social contact, to help others, to fill time, to gain recognition, to meet the expectation of others, to help achieve goal of recognition, personal enrichment, to develop skills, to have fun and enjoyment, to have a sense of accomplishment, and to express oneself, lastly, to improve oneself image. For the research methodology, for the research, we are using quantitative methods. Burns and Grove 2001 stated that designing a study helps researchers to plan and implement the study in a way that will help them obtain the intended results. thus increasing the chances of obtaining information that could be associated with the real situation. So, from this study, we will use a quantitative method research to identify the influence of volunteer motivation towards satisfaction. Quantitative research options have been predetermined and a large number of respondents are involved, according to Lee 2009. For the sampling technique, for this study, we are using convenience sampling. According to Sarkan 2009, the sample is selected because they are convenient. This is the most common type of probability sampling technique. So, for this study, we are using convenience sampling because the type of sampling where the first available primary data sources will be used for the research without additional requirements. For the data analysis, we are using descriptive analysis and reliability statistic. So, to prepare a data analysis, we are using the latest version of SPSS, which is version 22. And then, from the data received from the questionnaire, we transfer into the software and we run a series of analysis, including this descriptive analysis, and reliability statistic was operated to produce a required data that answer the research question. We go to the findings. Firstly, I will talk about reliability statistic. Okay, for the Chromba alpha, on the findings, we find that the Chromba alpha is 0.730. The Chromba alpha based on the standardized item is 0.732, and the number of item is based on 12 items. So according to Sarkan 2009, the reliability score should be variable above 0.6. According to this reliability statistic, the analysis is first to find the factors of deviation was committing this assumption, and this measurement was well to ready for further. Next finding is about average volunteering involvement in 1 year of respondents. So the highest percentage was 38.5%, which including of 65 volunteer were volunteering an event for 5 to 10 times in 1 year. Another 37.3% shows that 63 of the respondents or volunteer were volunteering an event for more than 10 times in a year. And the lower shows that 24.3% of the respondents, only 41 respondents volunteer less than 5 times in a year. For the findings, extensive factor, so comparing the mean among the items of extensive factor, the highest mean was 3.12, standard deviation of 0.901 for the item I became a volunteer because I want to win others' respect. The lowest factor of intrinsic motivation factor was the item I became a volunteer because I want to get a free food, which the mean of 2.55 equals to standard deviation 1.107. For the next finding is about intrinsic factor, which is the highest mean was 3.14, standard deviation equals to 0.925 for the item participating in volunteering is fun. So the lowest factor of the intrinsic motivation factor was the item participating in volunteering activities help develop my interest, which is the mean is 2.83 equals to standard deviation of 0.924. The next finding is about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation factor, which referring to research question 2. What are the relationship between motivation factors and volunteer satisfaction? Okay, so for the extrinsic and intrinsic motivation factors, for the hypothesis 1, there is significant relationship between extrinsic motivation factor and volunteer satisfaction. So according to the table, there was a weak positive relationship between extrinsic factor and volunteer satisfaction, which is the R equals to 0.379. Therefore, the hypothesis 1 is accepted. For the hypothesis 2, there is significant relationship between extrinsic motivation factor and volunteer satisfaction. So based on the table, intrinsic factor has the moderate positive relationship between motivation factor and volunteer satisfaction. Therefore, null hypothesis is rejected and alternate hypothesis was accepted. Thus, the correlation coefficient is very highly significantly different from the zero. You can see on the table itself. So the present correlation is 0.554 based on the intrinsic motivation factor and volunteer satisfaction. Lastly, is about conclusion. So the most effective factors that motivate respondents based on this study to influence satisfaction were intrinsic factors. In intrinsic factor, high number of respondents was choosing is participating in volunteering is fun. Secondly, for the conclusion, the volunteers find that when they're participating in volunteering program or event is fun for them, for gaining their experience and fulfill their volunteer expectation toward the event. And lastly, when we run the data analysis, there was a relationship between motivation factors and volunteer satisfaction based on the analysis that we been made. So from having extrinsic and intrinsic factors that can support motivation factors of the volunteer, make the volunteer more satisfied to join in the volunteering in event. That's all from me. Thank you so much for listening my presentation today. So I hope that in future we can establish more recommendation for the future volunteering, especially for the students at Polytechnic in Malaysia. I hope that I can see you soon, and thank you for the Techon 2023 committee for organizing this type of conference. Thank you so much, and Assalamualaikum and Salam Sejahtera.